Did you know that bursitis was the #1 Google search injury in the state of Florida? More than 16,000 searches per day. But still #2 in America with 217,000 searches per month across the country with bursitis. That's a lot of people suffering from bursitis. So today we're going to talk about what is bursitis, what can cause bursitis, and is there anything you can do to stop it and keep it from coming back? And oh, by the way, don't forget to subscribe, like down below, and leave comments so that you don't miss out on any of our future videos. See you in a bit. Welcome back to the Muscle Repair Shop. My name is Butch Phelps. I'm a functional massage therapist, and today we're going to discuss bursitis. Now, in a recent article, June 2nd of this year, in the Naples Daily News, an article was written about bursitis. And in the article, it stated that bursitis was the #1 Google search injury in the state of Florida. Not surprising, I guess, because we have so many active people here, but that's nearly 17,000 searches per month just on bursitis. And when we go out on a national level, in the same article, they said it was the #2 Google search injury in the country, which means that on a per month basis, bursitis has about 217,000 searches per month. That is incredible. And yet, when people have bursitis and they go to a doctor and is diagnosed with bursitis, many times you're given what's called the RICE method. That's rest, ice, compression, and elevation. But the problem is it doesn't stop it if it just relieves it for the moment and then comes back. What if we could find a way to keep it from coming back? How would that change your life? Well, today we're going to talk about all of those things, why certain things that we're told to do for bursitis only works on a temporary basis, what's actually causing that to happen, and then we're going to talk about what you could do to possibly keep this from ever coming back and affecting you again. So let's start with, what is it? Well, bursitis is an inflammation of what's called a bursa sac, and a bursa sac is around every joint that we have in our body, and the purpose of that bursa sac is to cushion the bones, cushion the muscles and the tendons around those joints. However, when you do repetitive action, whether it's an activity like a sports or something that you enjoy doing like a hobby, or a job that requires you to do repetitive things every day, bursitis can flare up because as the muscles and the tendons are rubbing against that bursa sac, it will cause the bursa sac to swell or inflame. Well, once that happens, then pain persists and it becomes very difficult to continue doing what you're doing. For so many people, in the beginning, they'll take things like Tylenol or Aleve and so forth, trying to relieve that pain. But over time, it'll just keep getting worse and worse and worse because every day you're doing that same repetitive action over and over and over. And so finally you get to a point to where that's it, I got to go see a doctor, I got to talk to somebody, this is just killing me at this point. Then you go see the doctor, he diagnoses it bursitis, which is spot on, and he then has several things that he can offer you. Now, the most common thing in the beginning is what they call the RICE method or RICE technique. And RICE is an acronym that stands for rest, ice, compression, and elevation. So the idea is that you rest that area where the bursa sac, where you have the bursitis, you ice it, which will reduce the inflammation, you compress it, which also helps to reduce the inflammation, and then you elevate it to get that up, if it's especially in the lower part of your body, to get that fluid to come back down into the lymphatic system so that the swelling will dissipate. Now, once the swelling dissipates, you feel fine. Everything feels good again, and you go back to doing what you did that got you in trouble to begin with. It seems kind of crazy, doesn't it? Other alternatives are maybe there are injections with steroids. Maybe they'll give you pain pills for it, or there could be braces you could wear to try to hold things in place. And again, while all of those things can stop the pain for now, The moment you go back to doing what you did that got you in trouble before, it's just going to come back. That's insane. Why would we do that? And so when you look at why that happens, and then look at what they're trying to do to solve it, you realize that all they're doing is temporarily stopping the pain. Now, over time, what will happen is you'll wind up giving up a hobby or a sport or something that you enjoy doing, which is not fun. And for those of you who get it from jobs that you're working on, it may be difficult, if almost impossible, to give that job up because of the pay, the benefits, and so forth. It's what you do. And so the thing is when you have something like this that keeps nagging and nagging and nagging, over time, there will become a bigger problem. Always. So the way to think about the muscles of the human body, and you know me, I talk about muscles all the time, is that the only thing in your body that can apply pressure to your bones so that you can get up and move and do the activities that you enjoy are your muscles. Bones do not move without the muscles moving them. So if the muscles get tense from repetitive actions, or from maybe you're feeling stressed, maybe you're worried about something, that will cause the muscles to become tense. Maybe you're just thinking and you're working hard on a project and you're trying to get something to happen. That can make your muscles become tense. And if any of you listen to my videos, you know that I always talk about everything you think, feel, and do. Your muscles will react because the brain is in control of them 100% of the time. So that can lead to your bursitis issues. That is why I developed what was called the stretch and release technique. Now, in the stretch and release technique, I am combining stretching of the muscles with self-massage with the brain, understanding that the brain is in control of this. So my goal here is I've got to get the brain to relax before I can get the muscles to relax. The one key thing to remember here is that if you're trying to stretch while you're thinking about a project you're working at home on or at work, or you're thinking about what you got to do an hour from now while you're trying to stretch, you are not stretching, you are doing strength training, okay? Keep that in mind. So the objective here is if I can release the tension in the brain, I will release the tension in the muscles. Think about it. If you're chilling, having a drink with some friends and laughing and joking, how tense are you, right? You feel great. But if you're mad or you're upset or you're worried about something, how tense are you? Not so great, right? So that's the same thing I'm talking about here. So in my stretch and release technique, one of the things that I talk about is getting the brain to relax. And how you do that is I show you in the techniques how to put your body in certain positions to put a little pressure on the muscles. Now, we're not going to pull it out like taffy, but we're going to put just enough pressure to feel how tight that muscle is. And then we're going to breathe as we hold it for about 5 to 6 seconds. And we're going to allow the brain to relax and let the muscle relax. And what's actually happening there is that as you're doing that stretch, you're showing your brain this is a safe movement and you've got nothing to be worried about. Then you're going to repeat that stretch 10 times. And as you do that, now what happens is you start to release that more and more because the brain is like, oh yeah, I got this. This is a piece of cake. So keep in mind, like if you're going to do something, like if somebody said to you, we want you to do a split, and you've never done a split in your life, what comes to mind? You're going to tear things. You're going to be hurting for 2 or 3 days. You could wind up in the hospital. That's your brain saying, do not do this. This is a bad idea. Well, the same thing is true in stretching. If you try to pull a muscle by trying to pull it through force, the brain is going through the same machinations it would be if you were trying to do a split for the very first time. So for most people doing stretches, what they're doing is actually strength training, not stretching. Now, the key here is understanding what muscle is causing the pain. Now, for everyone who's ever heard me speak about muscles, you hear me talk about that we are an amazing balancing machine. We balance front to back, side to side, which means if the muscles on the front side of my body are in a tense state trying to balance me, the pressure from gravity shows up on the back side of my body. Prime example, I see this almost every day. Somebody comes in, they wake up, they have low back stiffness, they sit in a chair for a while, they wake up, their back is stiff, or if they stand for a while, their back stiffens up and starts to hurt. They believe, and I bet you do too, you have a back problem. And the truth be told, 99 out of 100 times you have a quad problem or the front of your thigh problem, or maybe an inner thigh problem. Because the muscles on the front side are in a tense state, it tilts the pelvis forward, which tilts the upper body forward, and the compression on the back of your lower back is where the pain comes into play, because you've increased that compression there. Same is true in the upper body. If you've got pain on the back side of your neck or down between your shoulder blades, I'd be willing to bet 99% of the time the outside of your chest is tight, the front of your neck is tight, and when that happens, the body curves forward, which increases the pressure on the back. One thing to keep in mind is that for every inch your head leans forward, it starts out at 10 to 12 pounds, so every inch it leans forward, the pressure on the back side of your back increases by 10 pounds per inch, which is amazing when you think about that. So when you're thinking about, I have bursitis, and let's say it's in my shoulders, and I like to play tennis, or I like to throw things with my arm, but when I lift my arm up, I get this pain into my shoulder joint, and the doctor says it's bursitis, I'll be willing to bet you that the muscle here on the outside is probably tight. Now you can massage up here all you want, you can stretch back here all you want, but until you solve this pain doesn't stop. Period. That's just how it works, okay? And so that's the thing that as I work with each of my clients, that I want them to understand that because the pain is back here, chances are the cause is over here. It works in any direction. If you have elbow tendonitis, 9 times out of 10, it's because of what you're doing with your hands, because you see these muscles attached. If you have low back pain, like I said earlier, chances are it's coming from the front of your thighs. If you have knee pain, chances are it's coming from your calf muscles. So the thing is understanding the mechanics of the human body, and that's what I talk about in these videos all the time, is that the one thing you want to keep in mind is that wherever the site of pain is, when it comes to muscles, the cause of that pain is almost always on the other side. That's the way we're built. So you can check out some of my other videos. I have plenty of stretches with that on here as well. You're welcome to go to my website called themusclerepairshop.com. You can sign up for a monthly newsletter that I have coming out every Tuesday, and that includes 2 videos of each newsletter as well. And if you like what I'm talking about today, please subscribe down below. Be sure to ring the bell, and always leave comments. I love getting comments, even questions. If you want to question what I'm saying, that's okay too, because that's how we learn, you see. And send your comments, send your questions, and if you know somebody that this could help, please share it with them and let them know. But for now, see ya.